Yeah, Wednesday. Welcome to Writer's Block. I'm Erik Kuselias in for Bill, and what a show we have for you today. NFL Draft coming up. Wait till you see who's likely or may go number one overall and involves a trade. We'll tell you what teams are involved. Plus, Antonio Brown, how he could impact this year's NFL Draft. That's coming on the way. Plus, we'll go inside the numbers and James Harden knocking on the door of Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan. We'll tell you how and why. But first, we got to get started because it's a big night in college hoops. So tonight is the night. Duke, Carolina, the greatest rivalry in college basketball. Duke comes in number one, and it's the first time Duke plays Carolina with them being number one in over a decade. But you know about these two programs, 11 national championships, 36 Final Fours. That's what they combine for. And there's a lot of history. There's a lot of tradition. There's a lot of names. This year, it's Zion Williamson. It's R.J. Barrett. And Roy Williams understands those names, but also understands this is a big rivalry, bigger than one or two players.
You know, they've been pretty good for a long time. I mean, you know, Wendell Carter, Marvin Bagley, those guys, they were all pretty good too. But Zion's a different bird. There's no question about that. We tried to recruit him very, very hard. He's got a combination of skill set that I've never seen before. And there is a lot of attention, but he deserves it. I mean, he's backed it up. I mean, he's been pretty good.
But Duke does have Zion Williamson, and they do have R.J. Barrett, and they do have Cam Reddish. And they are a big favorite tonight, 9 points. And Duke has been good in the series lately, 7 of the last 11. And you're starting to see that Duke is becoming the very trendy choice to win the national championship. They're almost even money against everybody else in the field. But is that smart? Is that wise? Are you better off taking these kind of one-and-done freshmen to win the national championship? Do freshmen end up cutting down the nets? It seems like going to that let's get the best high school player one-and-done mentality bears fruit. But does it really? Let's put that on the clock and take a close look at whether or not the one-and-done philosophy actually is going to work out for you. See, first of all, this all started back after the 2005 draft. In 2005, that was the last time you go right from high school directly into the NBA. So there was no one-and-done rule because there was a none-and-done. And the high school kids in that final high school draft, there you go, Martell Webster, Andrew Bynum, Gerald Green. Yay. None of those guys are getting bust chiseled in Springfield. But after that, and since then, you had to go to college at least for a year. Hence the term one and done. So you have a bunch of kids who show up and you know they're only going to be there for 1 year and they're going to go to the NBA. And certain schools have encouraged these kids. Come here. Duke, Kentucky. But does that pay off? Having the best talent, having the best young talent? I'm not sure. It's probably not going to win you a title, in fact. If you don't believe me, let's take a look. Why guess when we can know? There have been 40 guys drafted in the top 5 who went to school for 1 year. So, one and dones, since the rule changed, 40 guys picked in the top 5. Only 3 of those 40 have won national championships. You see them here. And 2 of them, Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, they were on the same team. So only 2 teams have won that have been dominated by one-and-done guys. You are better off with juniors and seniors than the great, talented one-and-done kid if you're trying to win the national championship. Don't believe me? Still not convinced? Sure, no problem. That's why I bring this stuff with me, so that we can all take a look. I mentioned 2005 was the first time, or last time you could go as a high school kid. 2006, Florida won with a bunch of sophomores. 2007, Florida won again. Remember famously, Billy Donovan back-to-back? Because all the kids came back. No one-and-dones on that team. Meanwhile, Kevin Durant, Greg Oden, Mike Conley, they didn't win a group. They didn't win a title. 2008, Kansas won. Brandon Rush, Mario Chalmers with the big shot. Juniors, you know who didn't win? Derrick Rose, Michael Beasley, O.J. Mayo, Kevin Love. 2009, Carolina, Tyler Hansbrough, the ultimate four-year college kid. Ty Lawson was a junior. You know who didn't win? Tyreek Evans. 2010, Duke won. You know who the leading scorer was in that 2010 Duke team? John Shire, a senior. How about Kyle Singler? Nolan Smith. It was a senior and a couple of juniors for Duke. You know who didn't win? John Wall, Boogie Cousins, the one and dones in Kentucky. 2011, it was UConn. Kemba Walker, get on my back, his junior year. 2012, yeah, that's the exception. Anthony Davis won as a one-and-done freshman, Kentucky Calipari's only title. 2013, Louisville won. Russ Smith was their guy, a junior. 2014, Shabazz Napier won. UConn, senior. That's right, no Wiggins, he didn't win that year. Jabari Parker, he didn't win that year. That's exactly right. And then you had Nova in 2016. You remember that Nova team, the first of the two, won in the last 3 years? Josh Hart, Chris Jenkins with the big shot. Juniors. You know who didn't win? Brandon Ingram. 2017, Carolina. That's right. Joel Berry, Justin Jackson. There was no Markelle Fultz, no Jason Tatum, no Josh Jackson. And then last year again, how about a senior, Jalen Brunson, being your player of the year and your best player on Nova, who won the title. You have to be convinced by now. This idea that you're going to take one-and-done kids and win national championship after national championship is a fallacy. In fact, you are far more likely to lose to a junior and senior laden team. So don't just pen Duke in to win the title yet. Now, they might win. Maybe these kids are good enough. Maybe this is the Anthony Davis Kentucky team. But odds are that they won't. It's a sucker bet to take Duke at 50%. Give me the field, because I have the better chance to end up cutting down the nets. So maybe it'll be Gonzaga, one of these other squads, Kentucky, Tennessee, but it's probably not going to be Duke. Maybe it'll be Carolina. You get to see Duke and Carolina tonight. At least that's fun. All right, it's going to be fun. We have Will Brinson on. NFL draft, his mock draft. What's going on with Kyler Murray? Why are teams passing on Dwayne Haskins? How many quarterbacks are going to go in the first round? That's ahead. I'm Erik Kuselias in for Will. Welcome back in on Writer's Block. I'm Erik Kuselias in for Bill. And pretty soon the NFL draft is going to be upon us. And this year there are some fascinating storylines. What's going to happen with the Heisman Trophy winner, Kyler Murray, who has now chosen football? Will Antonio Brown be part of this draft somehow, some way? What about Le'Veon Bell? How many quarterbacks will go? And whenever I see a mock draft, I always wonder, is this what the guy thinks we should do, or is this what he thinks they will do? Except when it's Will Brinson, because he's very clear. This is how it could possibly fall. This is not a personal, this is what I would do if I were all the 32 teams. So his latest is up. It is absolutely fascinating, and it's great to have him aboard. Will, how are you, bud?
Doing well, EK. You know, I only get to do a mock every 2 weeks now, so I decided to jam-pack 2 ridiculous trades in one mock, just in case the combine gets crazy and Antonio Brown gets dealt before my next one.
And you know, it's not that crazy. Look, Arizona on the clock, they picked Josh Rosen last year. You say, okay, they trade Josh Rosen, they draft Kyler Murray. All right, you think that could happen. Now I'm making you Arizona. You're Steve Keim, you're that whole brass, you're Arizona. Would you trade Rosen and draft Kyler Murray?
I'll tell you this, I think after doing this exercise that it is at least something that you have to consider if you're the Cardinals. And it's not because you don't like Josh Rosen, it's because if you believe that Kyler Murray is a better prospect for the air raid system and for to run what Cliff Kingsbury wants to do, then I think it's a worthwhile gambit to take if you are able to get the proper compensation back. Now, in this particular thought exercise, this mock draft of mine, I had the Cardinals trading with the Washington Redskins. They send Josh Rosen to Washington. They get the number 15 overall pick back. I think it would also work if you wanted to do it with the Miami Dolphins and you were willing to do if they're willing to move, number 13. I think anything in that 11 to 15 range would work. I would even be fine, really, if you're the Cardinals making a move with Oakland to try and get one of their later round picks back. But remember, the Raiders were the team that the Cardinals traded with last year to move up and get Rosen. I would presume they don't want to do that. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is something that you look at and you say, okay, we can have Josh Rosen and Nick Bosa, or we can have Kyler Murray and Christian Wilkins. And as good as Nick Bosa is, I don't know. I think it all comes down to personal preference in terms of which combo of those guys you would want. And if you think Christian Wilkins is as good as a defensive prospect as Nick Bosa, or close to as good a defensive prospect as Nick Bosa, and you think Kyler Murray's the better quarterback, then absolutely it's worth doing. Now, having said all that, if they like Josh Rosen more than they like Kyler Murray, or the two are equal, then I don't know that it's necessarily worth the trade-off to try and deal Rosen. I also think Rosen got a raw deal, or gets a raw deal right now. He was a top, he's a top prospect coming into the draft.
All right, but if Rosen was in this draft, would he go ahead or behind Haskins?
I think Rosen would probably be, if we're talking about Rosen coming out of UCLA, I think that Rosen would be the top quarterback in this class.
What about if we knew what we knew right now? If we put this Josh Rosen, who we saw last year, in this year's draft, does he go ahead of Haskins?
Yes, I still think he does. I think there's more certainty to Josh Rosen than there is with Haskins in terms of the number of starts he's made.
All right, you have Antonio Brown getting traded. We all do at some point in time. You think Green Bay is a really good landing spot. I mentioned it yesterday. Our good friend Pete Prisco is someone I talked to yesterday. I mentioned Green Bay. I thought that was the fit for me. He said Pittsburgh would be thrilled to get a 2 for him. You have him going for a 1. If you were Green Bay, would you give up a 1 for him?
If I were Green Bay, I would try to give up a 2 and get away with it instead. But I think I would be willing to give up that second first-round pick, because not only can you add a defensive player with your first-round pick, right, 12th overall, I believe, you can then go back in, and I think then you can go back in and you can trade your second first-round pick that you got from the Saints. It ended up being a very late pick, and you can get yourself Antonio Brown, who, for all his distractions and all his concerns and all his aging issues and all his contract issues, is still one of the 5 best wide receivers in football. And if you paired him with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, you would have a lethal combination there. I also think that it might be a bit much for the Packers to do. It flies in the face of the way they've operated business-wise for the last few years. But at the same time, you're talking about putting together what could be one of the most dangerous offenses in NFL history if they have an offensive line that can protect them.
You want to put Antonio Brown and Aaron Rodgers with a rookie coach? You can't see that going badly? By the way, I'm playing devil's advocate because I said Green Bay was the best spot for him too. So I'm more asking the question that people would ask both of us. Lastly, I noticed in the mock draft you have the Giants passing on Dwayne Haskins. Everybody thinks they're going to take a quarterback if one is there and they like him. Dwayne Haskins would still be on the board in your mock, and they wouldn't take him. They wouldn't trade out of the spot. They would just say, no, thank you, and he would go to Jacksonville with the 7th overall selection. Could you possibly actually see, and would you pass on Haskins if you were the Giants?
If I were the Giants, I would not pass on Haskins, and I would take a quarterback, and I would want to get a quarterback in place to relieve Eli Manning, who clearly has shown that he does not have much left in the tank, even though the Giants want to wish cast another season upon them. Haskins, to me, shows the kind of thing, the kind of talent. You see that deep ball arm strength, the ability to operate a modern offense. I think he would work well in Pat Shurmur's scheme. Now, here's the thing with the Giants. Dave Gettleman, as a GM, has never traded out of his slot in the first round. He just doesn't move. He lets the first round fall the way it is, and he also sticks to his board. He does not care about positional need. He said as much. He always says it. Nobody believes him, and he does it anyway. That's why he took Saquon Barkley number 2 overall. I think this is an interesting litmus test as to how much influence management and ownership has on Dave Gettleman in terms of making that pick, because I don't believe Dave Gettleman will fall in love with any of these quarterbacks, but if the ownership says you need a quarterback, he may eventually have to take one.
2 more quick questions. First, you have 2 quarterbacks going in the first round. The Vegas number over-under is 3. Does that mean if we walk to the window, you would bet the under? Because I think I'd take the over.
Yeah, I mean, I think that 3 is probably going to be a push, but I would take the over in that spot, because I think you'll see one guy ultimately forced in there. Kyler Murray's going to go in the first round. Dwayne Haskins is going to go in the first round.
Locke, Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Look,
4.
The Redskins, if they don't do this hypothetical Josh Rosen scenario, are going to have to take a quarterback. They have to draft one early. I think Daniel Jones is a guy that you could see going there. I wouldn't be surprised if John Elway still loved Drew Lock and wanted to take him in the first round. And then don't forget, with a first-round pick, you get the 5th-year option. That is crucial for contract negotiations. That's why teams love to trade back into the first round and try to get a quarterback with one of those picks. then you have the Patriots, the Seahawks, the Ravens, all teams that are willing to dip back into the second round to let somebody else come up for a price.
And then finally, Le'Veon Bell is playing on what team come week 1 of the upcoming NFL season?
I will say the New York Football Jets, who have a young quarterback, a need for a guy who can catch some passes in the short yardage area, and a ton of cap space, plus a GM who wants to make a splash and win some games. And he would be, look, Le'Veon Bell would be a tremendous asset in Adam Gase's offensive system.
Why don't you put him up in Green Bay too and have him go for it? Put AB and Bell up there. I'm not kidding. Why not? Go for it. Try to win it right now.
I don't mind the idea. Oh, look, forget defense. Who needs defense? This is an offensive league. Load up Aaron Rodgers, give him all the skill position guys, spend all your money, and you got yourself a heck of a fantasy football team there. Aaron Rodgers, that would win a title in every single league if you had AB, Devontae Adams, Le'Veon Bell, Jimmy Graham, and Aaron Rodgers.
Hey, look, the top 4 highest scoring teams were the 4 teams left. We can let the Super Bowl fool us, but the bottom line is if you were one of the top 4 teams in terms of putting points on the board, you were one of the top 4 teams left standing at the end. Will Brinson, always a pleasure. You're the best, dude. Thank you so much for the time.
Always a pleasure, EK. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Now, straight ahead, I have some numbers that will knock your socks off. James Harden, Wilt Chamberlain, Michael Jordan report to the dance floor. That's next. This is Writer's Block. Back in on Writer's Block, I'm Erik Kuselias, filling in for Bill today. And the first half of the NBA season certainly gave us a lot of drama. It started by seeing LeBron in purple and gold. We had a crazy trade deadline. How about the idea of James Harden and that beard just knocking down shots and threes and 30-point games at a record pace? Russ just keeps piling up triple-doubles. And oh, by the way, still have the question of, can anybody beat Golden State? Let's take a look at the first half recap.
I'm a fun guy. Obviously, I love the game of basketball. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
Even when a superhero is knocked down, he's still a superhero at the end of the day. And Derrick Rose showed why he's still a superhero.
The Timberwolves and Sixers hit a great to a deal for Jimmy Butler.
I know that this city thrives and loves guys that just compete and work hard and want to win. I think I'm that guy.
LeBron James, that groin injury, don't know if it's going to be short-term, long-term. This will be the first time we see the Lakers without LeBron James.
LeBron missed his 17th straight game. The Lakers now 6-11 without him.
The frustrations are mounting with the guys in green. They've lost 3 in a row.
These are a lot of things that I don't think that some of my teammates have faced of just every single day. It's not easy to be great.
I'm a warrior.
Friday night was boogie night.
Felt like a kid on Christmas. This was probably one of the best days of my life, just being out there on the floor again, playing the game that I love.
Russell Westbrook does get his 10th straight triple-double, which is an NBA record. Passes Wilt Chamberlain for the longest streak.
He is a breathtaking ball player, a winner on every level.
Definitely an unbelievable moment. I just go out and compete, and whatever happens, man.
Second youngest player ever to have a triple-double.
He's been absolutely awesome. He has the most beautiful step-back jumper this side of James Harden.
The streak continued.
You have a cool streak like this where you're talking about 30 points in 30 straight games.
All of this is incredible.
What James Harden is able to do with the ball, he's a magician.
There's just no stopping James Harden.
All-star Giannis Antetokounmpo harvesting souls.
The Greek Freak is back.
I don't think there's one guy that can stop me. They got to all work together to stop me from making plays.
New Orleans Pelicans continue to shop superstar big man Anthony Davis. Lakers apparently starting to get all in.
They've decided to essentially throw the kitchen sink at the Pelicans. Their entire roster plus 2 first-round picks. I'm not sure the Pelicans are actually all that serious about really engaging the Lakers in the first place.
Dell Demps will not trade Anthony Davis after all. The Pelicans parted ways with him.
He was the guy making the decisions on the most important decision in Pelicans franchise history. Was one bird in the hand worth 2 in the bush.
What a first half, but here are your numbers for the second half. 58. DeAndre Ayton could be the first rookie in NBA history to go 16 and 10 while shooting 58% from the field. How about 11,147? That's right. Jamal Crawford needs 70. Sweet Lou Williams needs 205 in their final 25 games. They would become the highest scoring bench players ever. Del Curry currently has that record. How about 19 and 6? This is the most important one to me. The 8th seed in the Western Conference had 47 wins last season. If LeBron wants to make the playoffs, he's got to go 19 and 6 in his final 25 to get where they needed to be last year in that 8th spot. How about 7.6? Yeah, Russ needs 7.6 assists and exactly 7.6 rebounds to go triple-double third straight year. That would be unprecedented. And then how about 31-5? James Harden, the beard. If he can go 31-5 in his final 25 games, he would average 35 this season. First player since Kobe to do that. By the way, the other players who have averaged over 35, Jordan, Rick Barry, and Wilt did it 5 times, including the year that he averaged 50.4 points a game. Think about that. Like, that's dominance. I scored 50 in my last game and my average went down. That actually happened in the NBA. Craziness. But it should be fun in the second half. It was fun today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to the great men and women who work on the show. Thank you to Bill for letting me sit in. And thank you to you, of course, for watching. Have a great rest of your day. I'm Erik Kuselias. More HQ rolls along.